Hello, everyone.
Hello. Our bright lights. Good to see everybody. We're going to close the, after we finish, there will be dancing. I don't know if you knew that. First of all, it's a pleasure to be here. Oral, thank you for joining me today. Thought I'd go through a few comments, and then Oral and I are going to chat for a little bit. And knowing Oral for a long time, I can assure you the comments will be super fascinating and educational. Thank you. But let me begin by talking a little bit about the mission of the conference, at least from my perspective, as a person who's been in travel for a long time, and also for the last 6 years have really been focused on experience and the journey in particular. And as some of you know, I spent last week at the Davos World Economic Forum, which was an interesting experience and another reminder of how complicated travel can be and how complicated our journey in travel can be. I want to also thank Leanne and the HEDNA organization for really elevating this conference. I've been to it many times in the past, and I think this elevation away from the peculiarities and arcana of distribution systems and GDS and those sorts of topics, which are important, but I think we've been there, and elevating it up towards closer to the guests, closer to where travel is going, I think is a really brave and important thing, and I'm really pleased to be here and pleased that that's happening. Let me just remind everybody of what we all know who travel or travel a lot about the journey. There's just so much patchwork associated with the journey still, and as travel experts, we're good at managing the patchwork, but it is today still a lot of disparateness between, let's say, reservation and check-in. Personalization is starting to be talked about a great deal, and it's even starting to show up a little bit, but there isn't too much personalization in the tech tools or in the human experience we run into. And there's a lot of gnashing of teeth and so forth about the legacy technology. Legacy technology is just a fact of life. I was chatting with a senior executive at a large hotel brand a week or two ago, not yours, who was talking to me about number one tech priority at their organization is migrating from DB2. Does anybody know what DB2 is? It's a really old technology, but it still works apparently. In the future though, we're moving towards, and we have to move towards, everything that can be easier and even seamless, which is a buzzword, but it can happen, and it really needs to happen, particularly as travel becomes more global and ever bigger. Personalization is beginning to happen, and almost every technologist and every brand can do an incrementally better job. There's so much more to accomplish here. And finally, this network of legacy systems, we need to find ways to connect them. For the technologists who are in the room, you know that the connecting is actually simpler than some people make it out to sound. But the real challenge is the prioritization of some of these objectives amongst the thousands of objectives that companies like yours have in their queue of things that the organization, the brands, the boss wants to accomplish. So somewhere in there, the journey needs to be elevated, and Oral and I are going to talk a little bit about our partnership and how we're tackling a bit of this. Let me talk about a few specifics about seamless scenarios that are actually happening today, and I'll keep it a little bit simplistic because these are the things that are fairly simple to do. And I want to talk about 3 categories of activity. One is creating a better top of the funnel, marketing speak. Many of you are marketers, or you work with your marketing teams pretty carefully. Cleaning up the top of the funnel is about spending money more efficiently to bring the right guest to your brands, to your properties. The second step is about really bringing people more efficiently to your front door, and by this I mean digital front door, I mean direct bookings and more digital engagement. And last is about earning repeat business from the guest. I'm going to talk about, and at Journera, working in all these three areas. I want to give just a little bit more substance to this discussion. One of the opportunities we actually have today, and Journera is involved in this, is about bringing first-party data, not just search data, not just intent data, but actual booking data in signal form, so that one today can actually know in real time a person has booked a hotel and they have not yet booked, they booked an airline flight and they've not yet booked a hotel. That data, with the permission of the data owner, this is the way we happen to work, so everything that flows through our platform is all based on the permission of the brand or the data owner at a very crystal level of detail, like the passenger boarded and who the passenger is with a token. In other words, it's not name and credit card and social security number, it's an identifier of the person. That signal can flow right to a hotel brand, and you can go look for customers, therefore, as a hotel marketer, who are at the top of the funnel, who you know have already booked to a destination in a date range. You can even know a little bit about their value inclination, their spend inclination, and you can actually market to that person and, in effect, clean up the top of the funnel. And what cleaning up the top of the funnel really means is a much higher return on spend. Typically 6 to 12 times more efficient because, one, the data's first party, not pixels, not cookies. Two, it's very much more target about who's really in market at a certain date range, at a certain value score, and then can bring that person down the funnel however they want to book to your brands, to your properties. So that's happening today. And it's one step closer to this idea of really, once you understand more about the journey, I can bring the right customer more efficiently to my brand. The next is a version of that is, imagine if when you know this customer has booked and you're able to do what we call matching. In other words, I match this to a loyalty ID associated with my brand. Now I don't just advertise them and hope they find me. I actually bring them through my CRM tools, typically emails. It can be app notifications as well. I can bring them right to my digital front door to book direct. A lot of good things happen from them. Lower cost of distribution is a good thing. But generally speaking, you know more about the customer who comes through your digital channel. And so that's another aspect. Clean up the top of the funnel, then but also bring them, if they want to my direct digital front door. And then lastly, you can use all of this information to know more about the customer and deepen your loyalty relationship or your opportunity to get the customer to have more activities with you. That could be either more stays, more spend per stay, and it can be about making sure you get they take full advantage of your loyalty and relationship program. So all of this is happening today. It's all triggered not by changing legacy systems, it's by changing the insights and signals, if you will, that legacy systems are able to capitalize on. One of the other things that's happening today, again, some of this is very simple, is just about learning more about potential customers. And many brands have great capabilities to know more about the customer or the guest as you know them in your world, your brand or your brand set of brands. But a bigger potential is to know more about the customer from the whole ecosystem of the journey. Again, an area that's been a place where we've been concentrating, but you can, from the ecosystem, you can get a better sense of this customer about, are they leisure on this trip? Are they leisure most of the time? Value scores, you can, and we do create a sense of how valuable is this customer. You can think of it almost like a credit rating from 1200 to 0. That can be understood for a particular trip or traveler. Are they luxury? Are they sensitive to price? How sensitive to price from a mathematics perspective? and also learn a lot about preferences, loyalty inclinations, and partner affiliations. So not just your brand, but a network of partners that you may already work with, but you don't know much about their relationship with partners. One of the unique aspects of travel is all of us have, generally speaking, more than one airline loyalty, and we have a lot more than one hotel loyalties. And so for a particular destination we're flying to, let's say Seattle, you might stay at one set of properties, and for another destination, another set of properties. Sometimes that's driven by your company, sometimes that's driven by your loyalty programs, and sometimes it's driven by the particular opportunity that takes you to that destination. The point is, this interconnectivity of the journey is really relevant to making sure the guest you want to serve comes to you and is served well by you. And so a lot of that is in what we call derived insights. Again, the state of the art today is you can actually calculate all these things in real time as the journey is happening. It's not something you get a report from a quarter ago, 2 quarters ago, a year ago. It's actually developed as the journey is taking place by a guest and many other guests. So this notion of getting the customer to be more in your digital tools is also super important. And this vision of a continuous process is also really important. Getting in and out of the experience of a property, payment processes, preferences, etc. These are all things that are heading towards being more and more connected. So the booking experience is tied more closely to the app opportunity to check in, to key access, to amenities at the property, and of course, the meeting process is even more complicated and important to sort of make part of this digital adaptation. I think we're in a good place. Lots of progress has been made, but there's sort of an infinite number of steps yet to be accomplished. Number one for me is making me not be fraud checked when I really just want a digital key. And so this is one of the things we're going to talk about.
We'll talk about
how
that.
you're going to make that happen for Jeff. Don't care about anybody else.
Put a chip in your arm.
Chip in my arm. But in any case, lots more digital adaptation happening, lots more to come. I think this is one of the great upsides for this industry that I'm super excited about. I want to talk about one real live use case, and it's a use case that everybody knows and everybody is either experimenting with or implementing, and this has to do with what's commonly called early check-in, late check-out. So this is a test we actually did pre-pandemic with a not Hilton hotel brand, but I'm eager to talk about this with Oral, where we actually implemented with a scope of properties the opportunity to take real-time flight data and flow it into and match it with guest identities of, so I'm flying in on airline A and I'm going to property B, and that's used to trigger an early check-in offer digitally to what I'd just say is a highly targeted customer. So you know a lot about them, you know exactly when they're arriving, on whom they're arriving. And so what we found is 80% of the properties found in our post-test survey that this provided them with a better arrival experience and drove more app engagement as a consequence. So you're hitting the right customer at the right time with an early check-in offer. Not 24 hours before, not 48 hours before a trip that I actually am not going on, but you know the customer is arriving because you have the boarding signal of the inbound customer. 42% of the customers who received this offer accepted it. That's really high. That's really high for any offer process. And 60% of the participating property managers and owners cited improved guest satisfaction and loyal to the brand as a result of this, let's just call it surgical personalization. So this is real. This is actually pre-pandemic. I think our opportunity post-pandemic to roll out these kinds of experiences either at one property or thousands of properties is really there for the taking. In general, what we work on is this notion of bringing the journey together. throughout the customer's experience, however complicated it may be for companies like Hilton, to drive a better guest experience, to drive better business performance. And again, I always use the term real time because our travel is live. So these systems have to work as we're on the road, as we're leaving our starting points and reaching our finishing points of our journey, and that's really possible for the first time. So with that intro, it's my pleasure to welcome my partner and friend Oral Muir. We probably met each other when you worked for that
other company.
That company in Bethesda.
Yes.
And now you're working for that company in Virginia. Anyway, thank you for joining me here on the stage.
This is great. I'm a huge fan of Journera for a whole host of reasons. We'll talk about that. So this is good.
Thank you. Well, just for starters, Oral, would you mind giving us all a little update on your remit, what you're working on, sort of what you're responsible for at Hilton?
Sure. So it's hard to prime away from distribution, so that's always going to be there. So part of my world continues to be distribution channels around the world. But some of the more recent additions, I'm also responsible for what we call partnership development, which is sort of an analog to lodging development, except it's new relationships, groundbreaking new partnerships for the company to grow EBITDA and grow value, grow customer reach, and actually reach beyond some of our current earthly constraints, and also then build a new experiences business for destinations around the world. And it's really fun. The first partnership, to give you a sense of what I'm referencing about Earth, is with a company called Voyager Space. They're going to replace the International Space Station in 2028, 2030. And Hilton is going to actually design the new crew quarters to actually bring hospitality to the stay, wherever the stay is, whether it's on this planet or another one. And that's fun.
Fantastic. Can you give us you've been a HEDNA participant for a long time. How do you feel about how the HEDNA is changing its shape, at least as evidenced by this session? Not so focused on, GDS, OTAs, blah, blah, blah. Cost of sale. You want to comment on this evolution?
Well, we're always all thinking about that stuff, right? So cost of sale is always on top of mind. But I will say the opportunity for all of us, everyone in this room is always doing transformative work. It's the nature of what we all do. But sometimes the conversation ends up being about fixing the past or undoing, 3 decades of technical debt, probably 30. And fixing the things in the past is so challenging and it's so daunting, and sometimes it sort of takes the hope out of the room, the air out of the room. And so a conversation that's more acclimated to leaning towards the future, leaning forward, and taking all this talent and capability and brain power and pointing it at the new challenges and the new opportunities ahead, that's all kind of compelling.
Great. In a similar vein, maybe we talk a little bit about priorities. I know you're going to take care of people in space. Yeah. I'm excited about that. Closer in, tell us about a couple of your exciting and maybe vexing priorities. Not everything's simple, I know. You want to talk about priorities? Yeah,
it's interesting. You said something earlier that I was talking with someone here yesterday about the relative speed of large companies. And again, most of us in this room who are part of larger organizations live in this high velocity and low velocity world, right? So inside the business, velocity is lower, outside it's more, and we have to basically figure out how to sort of stay upright while 1 foot in both places, and that makes all of you incredibly talented. The reality though is that there are 1,000 projects inside large organizations, and sequencing those and driving them forward is always the challenge. For us, we have 2 massive categories. The first is driving our network and growing our network effect, as we refer to it. So in fact, while I'm here, there's a whole team of Hilton folks at the Alice conference in Miami talking about how we're growing our hotels and brands. We just launched a new brand called Spark, focused on economy travelers. And that's going to be a powerful platform because just in launching, we have 100 units ready to go in terms of owners signing up to do about 100 deals. That's pretty powerful. And then, in that network effect, making sure our owners, our customers are happy and we're listening. We also launched recently a brand, not too long ago, recent past, a brand called True. And we've done some innovation driven by the pandemic that some of it seems magical, right? I was watching a video, a bunch of kids using the new automatic pancake machine at True Hotels. And it's a pretty cool thing, right? You kind of wave your hand across sensor and the machine gives you a fluffy, golden pancake. And these kids are losing their minds. It's like, wow, okay, pancake. And I'll admit, I love that too. And so driving the network, but also driving our commercial engines. And the biggest, I think, things that most of you will have seen underneath that 1,000 projects, but what you would have seen is the Hilton for the Stay, commercials on TV or on social, this idea that we're committed to the stay. It's about destinations in the end, but for Hilton, our delivery is against your experience on property. And we deliver that a bit cheeky in some of the messages. My favorite is the creepy doll that, I don't know if any of you have seen those commercials. And I will confess that when I'm in hotels, older hotels like this one, occasionally you hear the little creaky sound or something. And last night it happened, and I'm thinking, please be like, the person in the room next door. But we are focused very much on that for the stay platform, and so much of what we do, you will see come true, even in terms of the partnerships we're driving with F1 and others, is going to be around being in relevant conversations, but being there because we've earned our place in those conversations, not butting in because we can afford to butt in. And that's powerful because you're accepted in the conversation. If you're in a restaurant or in a bar having a nice conversation, you'll engage the people that are a part of that conversation and have context to be there with you, as opposed to some person that just runs into the room and goes, hi, which is how sometimes hospitality marketing operates. And so we're sort of transforming marketing and taking more the Apple or Nike approach and saying, look, this is a forever message. Eventually, you're all going to be saying Hilton for the Stay, much like you'd say priceless relative to a certain payment brand that we all know. Cool.
Very good. When you look around the world, and maybe in other industries than your own, talk a little bit about innovations you see that excite you. Maybe there's an application that's direct, or maybe you can imagine the application that's direct to the Hilton brand. What's out there that's exciting from an innovation, maybe even a customer benefit standpoint that you want to grab and make more part of your remit?
It's going to sound like I'm just pushing the stuff that we're working on, but it's the stuff that's magical to me and that I enjoy doing because, like so many people in this room, I have problems when I travel and I'm like, why won't we, or why won't someone? I think many of the ladies in the room and the gentlemen with more hair than others will talk about the hair dryers. That's one of those believe me, that's on my list too. Why can't we all have a nice Dyson in the room? That's another matter though, entirely another matter. I keep saying to the powerful women in our organization, if you band together, we will change this together. But the thing that I have fallen in love with is near field technology and using the right data and guest feedback. How you can leverage near field technology with the discipline around retail anthropology to look at how people behave in a space. How they actually reach the shelf and what they do, and then make adjustments. And when you do it right, it seems just magical and simple. For me, the example is, I'll never forget the first time. So we're working on our app. Most of you you're able to check into your rooms and check out and everything else through our app. You can book adjoining rooms for the first time in the history of the industry, something that everybody here has been talking about forever. We finally achieved that. But for me, it was kind of magical walking into an elevator with my device, my mobile device, and I didn't have to try to put the phone near the sensor. I walked into the elevator and our digital key tech flipped to elevator. I was like, okay. It's the first time I experienced it was in real time, like with other people in the elevator, and I'm like, this is cool. And then I walked towards my door, and I didn't have to kind of push the phone near the thing or do that. It recognized I was near the door. I'm a few steps away than usual, and it flipped to my room number. And this seems like a simple thing, but remember, near field tech for security and all kinds of reasons, people are like, well, you got to put it right there and make sure it's not opening for the wrong person and things like that. And so solving the things behind the scenes to make near field tech almost magical when you walk into the elevator. You had 5 people trying to maneuver around each other to sort of put their thing next to the device. that kind of madness, seeing that fade away for me is incredible. And I think also, being able to also use the data from a company like Journera to make the journey more seamless for our customers and recognize when they're having challenges. So flight delays, especially during winter, it's not a surprise. You know that all the flights are shut down in a certain market. The data is there. What can you do with that data? Can we reach the customer long before the customer? There's some people who are really believers and hopeful in airports when everyone else is leaving and getting a hotel room. There's always a bunch of folks who are like, we're going to stick this out. It's going to be all right. It's like, yeah, not going to work. And at some point, those folks need a room. What if we could reach out to them and say, guys, it's okay to have hope, but we're holding a room for you just in case. I'm looking forward to that, right? It's
Fantastic.
That proactive engagement.
Fantastic. I'll name one, and then we have to get back to the subject. Has anybody used a Koros watch? If you haven't used a Koros watch, back to things that excite you, this is really, really simple, but this is a watch that sort of extreme athletes use, and its key feature is really long battery life. Imagine a watch whose battery lasts over a month. It's sort of a magical, simple thing, to your point. It's just a little bit of enhancement, and now all of a sudden I really love this digital watch. Plus it's got a really great app that tracks things like yoga and spinning and all the stuff that I like to do. Let's talk about the seamless journey, though.
Yeah.
That's the theme of our conference, is more about the seamless journey. Can you give an example or two of where Hilton's focus on bringing this more to reality is? You got a very complex, very global business. Give us a couple examples where this is coming to the fore.
Yeah, probably the biggest for me, and I've shared this example with you before, is when our customers get involved and then drive a conversation in a different direction we didn't necessarily appreciate. And so one of those is around, we're so excited to launch Confirm Connected Rooms so that you can finally say, you don't have to worry about making the request and hope you'll show up at the front desk and hope for the best. We've also chosen to, in some cases, invest with our balance sheet, which is a difficult decision for most companies, particularly in our space. But when you do that, you can drive the adoption and take some of the risk from our owners because you believe enough in the consumer opportunity. And that's actually the real innovation, right? Changing how we actually invest. But then a lot of our customers started telling us things that we didn't anticipate fully. And so we have a very big focus on accessibility. And we have a whole working group around this. And it took off in this entirely incredible direction where those customers got so excited, caretakers, people who had who worked with someone who was visually impaired, someone who had someone that they took care of in a wheelchair, or just a family member that's ill. And so we thought about it from the point of view of leisure travel, right? You're traveling with your kids. Can you have to confirm a room with your kids next door? And then this whole other set of consumers came out and said, no, this is powerful and transforms how I actually do what I do in a way that we didn't anticipate. And so I think the point of what I'm saying is we seek to enable this seamless journey in some key ways. But what I've fallen in love with, and I think what we love as a business, is sort of those surprises where now we're going, oh, wow, around accessibility around the world, we can lead in this space in a way that we didn't anticipate.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
I love that story. Thank you. Thank you, Oral. Well, let's talk just for a minute or two about the work we're doing together, and suffice it to say, Hilton has really been a leader in grasping this idea that data is all empowering, but in new ways that are really about individual guests, individual experiences, the interconnected journey. As in some of our work, is there a use case or two that is sort of, as we look ahead at the next couple of years, a use case or two that's really key to you, that you're enthused about, that you don't mind sharing with the audience?
Yeah, absolutely. So the first thing is the Lyft partnership that we developed a few years ago. Typically partnerships like this end up being about just exchange of loyalty currency. And leveraging Journera between us and Lyft allowed us to do a lot more and continue to do that, and we keep evolving that. It's a true example. What I'll say though is, for me, I've been in this business development space forever, and again, a lot of folks in the room have been doing this. How many of you have gotten super excited about a partnership or a potential deal in the rooms, like, we're gonna do this, we're gonna do this, oh my God, wow, boom, wow. And then you get back to your office and talk to the folks from tech. And then it's like, okay, dream dashed, you know? And so those dream killer moments, I think what we're now potentially embarking on is in this new journey of using Journera to look at initial assessment and audience overlap. So, you know, we typically would do pilots, and let's do a pilot or a test for 6 months or a year, and let's see if this actually, the promise is actually there. We can now actually upfront, and this is the plan, say, well, in the assessment conversation, let's just figure out, can you actually do what you say? Is your audience what you say your audience is? Do I have a reason to be really interested in your audience? Imagine being able to do that up front in the conversation. It'll save us all a lot of pain, suffering, and instead of asking our teams and our businesses who already have 1,000 things to do 50 more, maybe it's only 5 more. And so I'm excited about that, because in this new journey that I'm on, and is driving these new enterprise relationships, that kind of assessment up front is absolutely material. And game-changing for going into that conversation with our other teams in the business, say, well, guess what? We have found something special here, and this is why this should be higher in the queue. Because typically when they ask you, well, yeah, you're excited about this, but why should I care? We don't have a good answer typically, other than we believe this and we think it's groundbreaking and so on. Having real numbers that are not speculative and it's not sales math. I do a lot of sales math, right? I think we all do. But being able to actually say, yeah, this is a $10 billion thing over the next 5 years. Being able to say that definitively and say, here's the data, here's why, that is transformative. I truly believe that.
Thank you. Well, we are out of time according to the stopwatch. Oral, thank you very much for being you, for being my friend and my partner. Thank you, Hedna, for having me here and letting Oral partner with me on the stage.
Yeah.
Great pleasure to be with you.
Cool hanging out with you guys. Hopefully you'll have me back.